Bitcoin has gone full send mode this week, legends, and if you caught my last video, I was discussing the potential for all-time highs as early as March now, so I want to discuss this with you all as well. I just want to go over a little market structure lesson, as I know there's a lot of people who were absolutely wrecked by never experiencing such trading conditions before this. But the market structure actually played out so absolutely perfectly for basically 3 full days. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But it was 3 full days before there was even any kind of change in structure on the 5 minute. And a lot of people are going to try and argue with me with that. But until I show you how I'm looking at market structure, it'll hopefully just help something click there. It's something that I kind of adapted to over the last couple of years as well. So some of you may look at structure the exact same way I'm about to show, but it's something that a lot of traders misunderstand, and one small adjustment can really change the way you view the charts. So obviously, I have to say it, none of this is financial advice. Do your own research and form your own opinions, and do back testing, because we could have the same charts, the same patterns, the same indicators, and absolutely everything the exact same, and we could trade the markets completely different. So it's important to recognize what your eye is able to catch. Oh, sorry, I thought you said that my mic was muted. So yeah, with that, let's just hop right over into the weekly Bitcoin chart here and the overall health of the market. Now, you guys know that I have been quite vocal for, I think it was about 14 months, that I thought we were going to eventually top out at around 48 to 50,000 US dollars. And honestly, it did catch me off guard a little bit, the fact that we never did really stop there for long. When looking at my macro weekly chart here on the logarithmic chart, I've been pointing this out since November of 2022, basically right from the FTX collapse. I was saying that if this was in fact the bottom, that I thought we would get back up to these levels eventually. And that would basically be our big rejection point. And honestly, you know, it was a beautiful target, absolutely nailed it. But we never got near the pullback I was expecting. I fully believed, you guys, full honesty, I thought that we were coming back to these levels, but the chart isn't showing that. And at this point, whatever, it is what it is. We got a weekly close above that level. That's a total change in structure, you guys. And there's just no reason to flip bearish on this chart yet. There is one thing that obviously we have to be cautious about here, is we are at resistance. I think momentum is heavily favoring the bulls here, but we have to approach this with a level head and just kind of look at both potential scenarios here. So one little bit of warning here, you guys, is, you know, on the shorter time frames, I love the Stuber fib pocket. That would be the 886, 786 fib pocket. And we have basically filled that absolutely perfectly on this little pump here that we've had over the last few days. So that is something to be a little bit cautious of. Full disclosure, I've never done back testing on it on longer time frames. It's more of my scalping and hoping to catch a runner with that kind of a trade setup. There's a few things to that trade setup, but I just always kind of take those Fibonacci's quite seriously. So, you know, again, I just want to be cautious at these levels. I think it's absolutely possible we see some kind of a pullback, but I'm just not really, I don't see anything saying that we have to yet, is the thing. On top of that, if we do break out of that fib pocket, we still obviously have all-time high resistance. Let's make a red line here to make it more obvious. So, you know, maybe there is the chance that we just get some kind of a failed break and then absolutely nuke from there. You know what? It's absolutely possible. These are all just levels that I think we need to keep our eye on. I'm personally expecting that, you know, we test all-time highs and kind of fight with it for a little while, maybe just a few weeks, something like that. But obviously the market doesn't give a shit what I think, so it's going to do what it's going to do, and we're just going to play the chart as it comes at this point. Yeah, monthly closing right away as well. I mean, just a massive engulfing candle. I know I was looking at it on the MDX ALGO here, just a massive monthly candle. So yeah, there's a lot of momentum on the bullish side here. Yes, absolutely. It's going to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to short the top because we're starting to pull back a little bit and it feels like it's super volatile to the downside, but it's actually just some kind of a healthy pullback before carrying on higher. You have to remember that basically any chart, if you're looking at a minute chart, a 5-minute chart, an hourly chart, I mean, so often the next candle will pull back into the previous candle a little bit, whether it fills the whole thing or only partially. It would just be totally normal on any chart, and that includes the weekly. But that would be such a volatile move on the shorter time frames that everyone will start shitting their pants. Everyone will think that's the end of the run, and maybe it is, but I just don't want to, jump the gun on something like that. Just talking about how I've never really done much backtesting on this fib pocket. On the other hand, on the macro time frame, I've been watching these 618s for a very long time, right? That is the level I was expecting. Yeah, we got that immediate rejection for about a month or so, but then blasted through it. So change in structure, whatever. Let's just go back to previous market cycles. I know I've showed this before, but just as a refresher, every time that we've got a weekly close above that 618, I've circled it in blue here. Just look what happened to the price after that. We can go back to the time before that. We see this. We break out here. Yeah, we test all-time highs. We come back, test that 618, and then straight parabola from there. Back here, even this little range that it formed on the weekly, we get that close above the 618, straight to the upside. Bitcoin's initial history here, yeah, we got that one big wick. After we end up closing above the 618, boom, straight parabola. So I want to be clear about this. Just because it's happened every other macro range like that doesn't mean it has to happen again, but it's something that I'm taking quite serious at this point. And as soon as we got that weekly candle close above that level, my opinion of this chart changed. I was cautiously bearish. I wasn't, married to the idea. I was not heavily shorting yet because I didn't see the confirmations other than some scalps. But as it stands, I just think that there's a lot of things favoring the bulls right now. The ETF, obviously, yeah, there's a bunch of buying on that end. The halving coming up. There's so many things. I'm just a charts guy. I don't get too much into fundamentals. I don't really give a shit what's happening in the news around Bitcoin or anything. I'm just going to play it as it comes. But, there's just a lot of things going for Bitcoin, and that includes the chart at this point. So basically, after we get this candle body close, as long as it basically closes above this little doji we had here, I mean, this is what I'm looking at as a confirmed higher low. So as long as we basically stay above this 618, I would say that we're in a very good place as far as the long term goes. I'm going to start zooming in a little bit. So yeah, basically what I always like to start zooming way out like this, get a overall view of the market, understand that, hey, there's a lot of potential signs pointing to the bullish side. So I have zero interest in trying to short the reversal of this thing. Reversals, you're only right once. And how many times is it going to take to guess that reversal? Yeah, if I see the ideal setup on a shorter time frame, I'll scalp a little short, but I have no reason to believe this rally is over at this point. So I'm definitely favoring the bullish side of my scalping at this point with my Stuber fibs and stuff like that. Let's just bring up another chart here. I do have a little bit of a position in. I've already TP'd a quarter of this. Basically, yeah, I was just looking at, we had this break of this green signal after we closed above this green signal, or green line rather. That is my buy signal, but I'm waiting for that pullback into my fib pocket. So right in the middle there. I've played a few of these today already. I've been having a lot of luck with these during these volatile times, so I'm going to keep playing it. There is a couple altcoins I want to look at, but actually first I am going to go into that little bit of market structure and just kind of go over what happened on this ridiculous rally that we had. Let's just start right from back here. Now, again, this is going to sound weird, but we never even lost a higher low on the 5-minute for this entire 3-day period. There was absolutely no reason, if you were just looking to play the trend, even on the 5-minute, no reason to get stopped out if you're taking longs, unless you're over leveraging, just maybe have a misunderstanding of proper structure and just not having proper invalidation points. But basically, we never lost this structure until right here. And this is where we ended up, a bunch of people got wrecked, obviously. That's where I closed the rest of my longs for that day. But so I want to go over how I'm looking at this market structure, just because, like I said, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding that a lot of people have, and not all of you, that's for sure. Basically, I entered a long on this because this was a Stuber fib. If I zoom into the 1 minute, you'd see it more clear, but technically, and this is micro-analyzing, but technically we had these lows and then we set a lower low. This is the lowest high on this little downtrend here. After we broke that, got my fib pull, and boom, right at the 786, just like I love a good Stuber fib pull there. So now I want to go into the market structure. I'll just draw a couple of lines here because it'll be easier. Let's make one red, one green, for obvious reasons. So at this point, when we came back, we have this now set as our high, right? We took out a couple of highs here. We took this out. We took this out. Where did we end up topping out before pulling back? Right here. So this red line, this is going to be our high. When we end up breaking that high, obviously our low was here, right? When we get, here's my high, here's my higher high now, that brings up my higher low, because my higher low is going to be the lowest point between my high and my higher high. So that's where I'm setting my new invalidation level, basically. This right here, funny enough, that right off the bat is the only time I can find that this actually ended up failing, because we got this after we broke this high. Where did we set our high? Was there, and then another very slightly higher high here. This is kind of micro-analyzing, you guys, so just understand that normally I'm looking for more, separated ranges and like actual ranges and stuff, but this is a very, very micro-analyzed. So at this point, that would have been my confirmed higher low. Unfortunately, we did lose that, but then we set this high here. We had this low, technically a very small little lower low here, and we broke that level. So now we have a new confirmed higher low at that point. So this was the only time where if you did try and take the long here at the higher low, yeah, you might have got stopped out here if you had a really tight stop, whatever. But this is where it becomes a lot more clear, you guys. After we end up breaking this high here, that's where we obviously set a temporary high at this level here. This right here is not a higher low structure. I want to be clear about that. A lot of people would think that, hey, at this point, if we come back here and we break down below here, oh no, the structure is broken. That's not necessarily true, because you haven't set a new higher high yet. I'm not considering this a higher low until this point where we actually broke above that level. After we broke this higher high, that's when I'm bumping up my higher low. At this point, where do we end up topping out? Well, right here. Again, I am not moving this higher low structure. This is not our higher low. I want to be clear about that. That's not our higher low until we end up breaking this resistance. Here is our signal that we can now move up our higher low structure. What's the lowest point between our high and our higher high? Right here. That's where I'm able to move it out. Did it get invalidated? Absolutely not. After that, where do we end up topping out? Let's go way up here. At that point, what happens? We eventually end up breaking that level. Then we can bring that higher low up. Actually, we could have brought it up a little bit sooner, I guess, because here we had a little bit of fuckery. Technically did close these candles higher. So yeah, at that point, we can bring this up to about here. After that, where's our high? Our high ends up being here, top of the range. I'm not going to change this higher low until we end up breaking this, in which case I could technically bump it up to there because that's the new lowest point between the high and the higher high. Honestly, just for a little wiggle room, I would still just keep it down at this level down here. And then again, where did we end up topping out? Very briefly right here, there was a little pause. Then we end up breaking that level. That's where I can now bring this up to be my higher low. And yes, we got a little wick below this, but whenever, that's just a failed swing fail. There's just a very small wick. There's not a close below or anything like that. So technically, after we broke this level, we now have that nice tight invalidation level after this point. And I actually posted on the group a new Fibonacci for this range, and I remember very clearly doing that. That I said, hey, maybe after this pump, maybe this is a new Stuber fib that ends up holding. And look at that. Entering at the 786, 886, the 1 stop loss with some wiggle room. Boom, look at that. Absolutely beautiful entry once again. So just being able to spot this structure like this and being able to pull Fibonacci's like that, it's a very powerful thing. And I think a lot of people just want to bump up their higher low and assume that something is a higher low before you actually have a higher high. So usually I'm waiting for that higher high confirmation that we did in fact set a higher low. And at that point, after the bullish structure break, that's where it's like, okay, that's my signal. I want to enter a long position, but I'm waiting for that pullback into my fibs basically. So yeah, even after this, let's just carry on with this trend. Like I said, the 5-minute trend just absolutely kept going. At that point, that's our new high, right? Just run it straight across. Held as resistance. Did we ever end up losing this structure of the higher low? Nope, just that little wick. After we end up setting this higher high, we can't even really move the bottom. In fact, we actually do move it down technically in that case. But then again, where do we end up topping out? We start seeing these levels. After we break that, you could then see, and that's where understanding this market structure, you can have nice tight invalidation levels. And I'm hesitant to explain this because make sure you back test this so that you do understand it properly and not just kind of assuming. Like sometimes if somebody is trading something, it's easy to think that you're seeing the exact same thing they are, but not necessarily, right? So go back, test how this structure works, but just showing you guys, I mean, quite clear here how it works. I mean, after we end up getting this little pause here, we set, so here again, we have a high, now a higher high. At that point, I can bring up that higher low as well, right? And this will be funny. Watch this. Guess where it pulled back to? Absolutely beautiful entry. Or right here, rather. Again, it's a small range. And the thing is, another thing is, you have to remember, play the range until it breaks. So at this point, yes, it's a very small fib pull, and that means, unfortunately, the profit-taking points to de-risk yourself, to pay yourself, are going to be closer, right? So I personally use these fibs. So obviously, yeah, after we got our entry, boom, that would just be a couple TPs right off the bat, downsizing to about half a position and hoping to catch a runner with the rest. After this level, obviously, then we set our high here. After we set our higher high, well, our higher low can't really move. So let's wait until it happens again. Boom, where do we top out next? We top out up here. And at that point, we still can't change this, right? We haven't broken this high yet. So after we do, in fact, break this high, set a higher high, that's where we can then end up moving this up a little bit. Do you kind of get what I'm getting at here? That I think a lot of people are so excited to get into positions and so excited to see those gains and have so much FOMO because you see other people posting crazy high leverage and stuff, and myself included, right? I use very high leverage. I am not saying do that. For God's sakes, if you don't understand leverage and don't have a basic grasp of your margin size and how much you're going to lose in conditions like this and stuff like that. Honestly, I think lower leverage, the better. Spot, even better if you're an inexperienced trader. But you can see that as we went on for these several days, we never did lose that higher low structure. It just carried on, right? After this, we end up setting a new higher high. That brings our higher low up to, this would be the lowest point between this high and this high. After we break that, we can then move this up. After we break this, we can move this up. After we break this, can move this up. After we break this, I can move this up. And boom, then we get the dreaded drop of that structure, and that's where everyone started getting wrecked yesterday. Nobody, like, that was the first time in over 3 days that even a 5-minute structure had changed. And that's what happens when you have such a long run going like that. Of course, there's a violent reaction, right? So I was just, every time we broke those structures and I was able to bring my higher low up, that's where I just kept bringing my stop loss up just below those levels. I'd leave a little bit of wiggle room, and usually I use my fibs to figure that out as well. But yeah, this was the first time that structure changed. So if you ever had a proper invalidation level on a long between Monday and Wednesday, even on a 5-minute chart, never would have got stopped out. Hopefully that little market structure, does that make sense, you guys? I know it's kind of a lot to take in when I'm moving these lines so constantly like that, but I just think people are very quick to assume, hey, we're getting a little bounce here. Here's our higher low, when that's not necessarily a confirmed higher low. You're taking a guess that it's going to be, but you don't actually have the structure showing it yet. And I really wanted to bring that to your attention because I've had a lot of friends recently just kind of mind blown when I've told them that. And it was a game changer for me, and I think it's a game changer for a lot of people, honestly. Because a lot of people, right, like, you know, I'm just gonna try and look for a quick random example here. Well, even just starting right here, right? I mean, we have these lows. We technically do drop below that. Here's our lower high. We end up closing above that. Do we ever end up losing this structure, right? After we have this break above this yellow line, we never did come back and drop below this. In fact, classic. I see these in fucking everything now. Boom. Look at that entry right there, right in the Stuber fib pocket. And again, remember, one of the main reasons why a lot of people can't trade shorter time frames is they want to enter a scalp position and hit a home run. You have to remember to trade whatever range you're actually trading. So, like in my case, playing these Stuber fibs, looking for an entry in here, you know, I'm already taking profits here and here. I'm playing this range because that's the range that I pulled that strategy from, right? Yeah, sometimes the gains aren't as big as you want it. It all depends what kind of a range you're looking at, right? But the important thing is, remember to play whatever you're playing. You're not entering a position on a 1-minute chart and hoping to hit a home run on a 1-hour chart or a 4-hour chart or anything like that. Does the auto charting tool draw the higher high and the higher low so that we can use for fibs? I have done that in the past, honestly. I just choose my own structure. Like, I don't know. I haven't used that indicator in quite a while. I did like it while I was using it, but I just fine-tuned my own strategy so much that I don't, like, I just kind of do my own thing. But it's I have pulled fibs with that. Like, I think it can be very helpful if you're having a hard time finding those pivotal points and stuff. I think pulling those fibs from those levels can be very good, or at least a very good start, going to be better than pulling from a random point. Like obviously the indicator's picking up some sort of reason why it's a pivotal point, whether it's the same way I'm looking at or a different reason. I don't know exactly how the indicators come to their calculations, but yeah, so, and that's the thing, you guys, like, there's so much more. Like a lot of times when, some of us coaches show bits and pieces of our strategies like this, like I kind of something that wanted me to, what made me want to make a video more talking about some basics to trading again, right? Because so many people probably have never looked at structure the way I just explained. So there's sometimes when I'm setting my fibs, then everybody just assumes if they pull a random fib, 786, 886, Stu says this works. Well, there might actually be 3 or 4 steps to why I pulled that fib. Things like that. So that's just something to remember when you're seeing other people's strategies and stuff. Sometimes it's hard to remember that not everyone has the exact same background and knowledge or things that they've back tested in the past, right? Like I said, we could have the same charts, indicators, trend lines, and we'd trade it completely different. So just something to keep in mind. And that's why I think it's, again, I know I'm hitting hard with this one, but I think it's so important to back test before you're trading any strategy. Make sure you're seeing it properly. Make sure you can see it on like the replay feature on TradingView. Make sure you have like kind of, a live chart playing out, and you just see if you can notice a certain setup that you can turn into a repeatable thing, right? Like one thing I've noticed with this setup, I've been fine tuning it for quite a while now, and I think I finally have all my rules in place that I want. And it's just one of those things that becomes so systematic. And like I said, I see it fucking everywhere now. Even I don't know for sure if it'll be right here, but even just after we broke this high right here, this is now our high or low. Did we end up getting it? Yeah, look at that. Absolutely perfect. 1-2 take profits before it ended up flipping around. So yeah, it's just one of those things that, once you start looking at charts a certain way and you've seen things play out enough times and you've played enough of the same setup, it becomes so systematic that I just eyeball these everywhere. I was telling Jay earlier, I can't even look at tall buildings without, like, if I see a tall building and then the one to the right of it is a little bit shorter, it's like, I can see that building's a good 786 of the other building. Like, it's almost becoming an autistic thing. I can't unsee it anywhere. But so hopefully you guys found that market structure lesson valuable. Again, go back test it and make sure that you're seeing it the same way. I think that's most important over absolutely anything. I mean, I like to compare trading to skateboarding. I've skateboarded for 20 years of my life. I can tell someone 1,000 times how to do a kickflip, but they are not going to do it until they have that muscle memory of doing it over and over, right? Sorry, just catching up on a few messages here, and then I will take a look at some altcoins as well. I have a couple that I wanted to touch on. Yeah, exactly. The key point is identifying when to move levels, not just because it seems a certain way or wanting to make the stop pretty tight or just pretty, but has to prove itself in technical terms. Exactly. Just because something's consolidating for a little bit does not mean that that is a new structure point. If we had, just to map out my own here, if we had, something like this, set a high, boom, set a higher high, and then we do something like this, and then something like this, this is not the high or low that I'm considering important structure. If we get some kind of a dip like that, let's say you long in here, Yeah, obviously you want to keep that stop loss tight, but that's not an invalidation in my opinion. The invalidation is actually back here would be our confirmed high or low, because we had our high here, higher high here. This is actually the high or low that I'm more concerned with. And that's where I'm, looking for fib pulls and stuff like that. So yeah, this is my most recent trade. I posted that I was in one earlier. It was actually, where was it? I don't remember. Basically from the same range. I think I was in just a little bit higher on my previous trade, but I rode it all the way up here basically. And yeah, again, just when we got this structure break, that's when I ended up closing the second half of the long that I had running here. And then basically we pulled back to pretty much the same levels and got another throw at it. So here we are. Hit my first take profit on a quarter of my position, hoping to hit the second take profit, which would be another quarter. So that would be half of my position TP'd. And at that point, when I hit my second TP, I'll definitely be updating my stop loss to a small profit. But for now, we're just going to see what happens. One of the best sayings my teacher told me, you are what you repeatedly do. Very true. Truer words never spoken. Oh God, I'm weed. I'm substances. What do you do when your low or high gets invalidated? Do you just wait for the new opportunity or switch time frame? Yeah, exactly. I basically just wait for the next opportunity to see some sort of a structure break, an ideal setup. And I have more than one trade setup. Like, yeah, this Stuber Fibs, that's personally my favorite trading strategy that I have so far. But I also have some with the indicators as well that I use. And that will also change like how your invalidation works and stuff, right? It's all about just having systems in place. Each setup is going to be a different scenario, right? Like when I'm looking at trending W's on the indicator, for example, spotting which way W's are trending, that's always been one of my favorite things to do. So like here's just a quick example. We have this high W, higher W. Since they're trending to the upside, I am taking the bullish buy there and starting to TP rather than with Fibonacci's or whatever. I'm using W's to TP in that case. So we're using previous W's as invalidation and stuff like that, depending, or structure, depends. But yeah, basically every type of trade setup, I just have different rules for. My fib settings, sure. Like as far as the numbers, well, basically whatever you see here. I have the 0, what is this one? And these are just a few numbers that I've started using. The 0.5, I like taking profits or partial profits there just because the midpoint of a range. The 214 is just kind of, it's usually very close to the opposite 786. If let's say I was looking, my second TP, I want to be the 786 of this kind of a swing. So kind of looking at this level. Let's see if it overlaps actually. From the long, yeah, so the 214, it ends up very close to the opposite 786. And you guys know, typically speaking, I like to enter positions around the 786, 886. So if I'm on the opposing end, that's kind of where I'm looking. Hey, rather than taking a short here, maybe I should just close some of my long, take some profits. Maybe it's a sign that that's a potential reversal zone. So yeah, that's why I have those numbers. So that would be the 214, the 0.5, the 786, the 886. And then I have the 1 0.15 in red here, just to remind myself to leave a little bit of wiggle room, basically. Hopefully that all makes sense. Yeah, I'll check a couple altcoins. Woo, I'll check Woo in a second here. If I've covered this before, how important is it to watch if we close slightly above or below the old monthly? Honestly, I analyze longer time frames like that so little that I can't tell you for sure. I generally speaking, I trade and have back tested way more shorter time frames. I think the monthly has a ton of momentum behind it, but I don't know at this point like where exactly the closing level matters. Position size calculator? No, honestly, I just kind of I wing it because I have a pretty good idea of what I'm comfortable with. And like that's another thing, guys, right? I want to be clear about this. You guys see me posting positions like 69x, 50x, 25x on altcoins, whatever, high leverage. That is not what your average person should do. I want to be very clear about that. Leverage is dangerous, and understand that I'm very well aware. I mean, when I was entering this position, I never got my last entry. I have a certain method of laddering in that I bring my average entry down. I just ladder in at these levels, heavier near the bottom ones. So I never hit my heaviest order on this, which I've canceled because I've started taking profits now. But so my average entry, if I would have got stopped out down here, that's where I was going with this. My average entry actually would have been slightly below the 886, probably somewhere right around here. And even that at 69x, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a high percentage. It's like 30 or 40% or whatever it is. It's a high number, but when I'm trading that type of leverage, I understand that I'm dialing back, I'm slamming on the brakes on the amount of margin going into those trades because it is so volatile right now. These ranges are a lot bigger than they appear. So I have a general idea of how much I'm comfortable losing in a position. I always go into a position assuming I'm going to lose. You always want to be ready for worst case scenario, and that's not necessarily a stop loss because you can get liquidated even with a stop loss. But since I have a good idea and I've been trading for almost 5 years now, I just have a good understanding of the margin amount that I'm comfortable with and that sort of thing. So even if there's the odd time where I'm totally comfortable taking a 60% loss on a position or whatever, because it's calculated into my margin amount. And honestly, I've just kind of been good with numbers my whole life. So I have a ballpark in my head that like, hey, I'm going to put in this much. I'm comfortable losing this much. And here's where my stop loss is going to be. That's about this percentage. Okay, well, that's going to be that much margin. So I just kind of figure out a ballpark in my head. If you're not comfortable with it, you should absolutely be. I think like Bybit has position size calculators and like risk tools calculators and stuff like that. But I've just done it myself forever, and I just continue to do it that way. Yeah, Nicholas, I think he's just like more so worried about like percentage of the portfolio you're gonna lose if you take a loss on the trade or whatever. But again, if you know the percentage of your position that you're gonna lose, well, that's the percentage that you're gonna lose off your margin, right? So yeah, I do it all in my head, and like I said, it's an estimate. Okay, I want to look at a couple altcoins. One I've been talking about on this stream for a while now because we broke this beautiful downtrend. Nasonic, I know you'll remember this. Rocket Man, if you're in here, you were the one who pointed it out, I think. We had this beautiful break on Eng. This is a daily chart. This trend line goes back over a year and a half. perfect touch points, well spaced out. I mean, a little bigger gap, whatever. Either way, more than 2 touch points, 3, 4, even 5. Broke out of that, end up flipping that resistance into support absolutely beautifully. Not only that, look where exactly that support and that retest of that old resistance was, right on the 786. So there, and that's after breaking this structure as well, right? Here was our lower high. We broke that as well. Did the classic. That's a classic Stuber fib pullback on a daily chart. So yeah, I've been bullish as hell on Engine. That's an altcoin bag that I've basically been building ever since we were trading and retesting this line. What did it? It ended up pumping from that 786. It got up over 80%. So I mean, it's finally building some momentum. Obviously, we're at resistance now. That's something to consider, but that played out absolutely beautifully. I don't know. In my opinion, I think there's room for more upside, but I think it kind of depends what the market's going to do, right? If Bitcoin just kind of pulls back, starts ranging in a healthy way, altcoins are going to go absolutely fucking nuts. If something spooks the market and Bitcoin crashes and sees a further, macro retracement, then altcoins are gonna, shit the bed temporarily. But either way, I don't think the market's in a bad position right now. I think there's a lot of momentum for the bulls. And that's not just FOMO speaking. That's everything I've discussed in the charts so far. So there is, well, the trend is your friend, right? I mean, yeah, you don't want to FOMO in, and you're always taught, don't FOMO into things when they're at their highs. But that's where being able to recognize those structure changes, especially if you can find a nice tight one like that where you have a nice close invalidation level, that's where these things become beautiful. But yeah, for now, things are looking good there. Let's check what the indicators are saying for Eng. Well, that's beautiful. We have the W's starting to trend to the upside again. As well, on the trend collection indicator, we have a higher buy signal. So one thing I really like using these indicators for, and I say it all the time, is just helping me spot a trend. And the signals are basically working the same way, right? So the W's trending to the upside. They're trying to draw my eye to that. We're setting a higher buy signal. So obviously the indicator is thinking that we're starting to trend to the upside. So just a way that I like to confirm my bias with the indicators there. As well, the trend collection, or the core trend, showed beautiful support as we were testing it here. And again, this is a daily chart, so yeah, I was bullish as hell on this. Another one, I know Simon is itching for this one, I'm assuming, would be Scallop. We've been bought a little bit of this recently. And basically what I'm looking at on this is we had a beautiful downtrend line. Guys, I want to be clear. I am not a fundamental guy. I know nothing of any of these altcoins I'm talking about. I just look at the charts and either I like them or I don't. But on a daily chart, this is another one of those beautiful trend lines. We have at least 3 touch points, which is always a part of my rules when looking for a breakout. I want at least 3 confirmed rejections on a trend line before a breakout. We got that. Did we end up... Oh, actually, I can drop that a little bit. Yeah, daily close above that level. And as well, it is a daily close above this horizontal level as well. So I think Scallop's in a nice place. I think it only has like a $20 million market cap, maybe 25 now, something like that. But that is a nice looking break. I've seen a lot of altcoins do that and then absolutely go straight to the moon. So we're going to have to see. Like I said, I know nothing about it, but the chart looks good. Core trend, beautiful support there. Trend collection, we do have this buy signal, a ton of W's trending to the upside. The advanced trend indicator, same thing. W's been trending to the upside for a while. Well, we actually did have this little warning here. I do take this as a bit of a warning when we set a lower high W like that, just a warning the trend may be shifting. But you can see that we just ended up finding support on these other indicators, broke that trend line. So in my opinion, well, we closed above these levels anyways, so that's invalidated anyways. Yeah, that's looking good to me. Target on scalp. Honestly, I don't even know at this point. A couple levels I was watching for resistance. Like, I'm not really interested in selling anytime soon, just because I'm very comfortable just holding the little bit of altcoins that I have. Oh, it must have been a different chart I was looking at, but I know there was a gap in the chart at some point. But I guess what could we look for if we do get a valid breakout here? I mean, just looking for Fibonacci's from where's our last major pivotal point would be up here. Just pulling that fib down to where we bottomed out. I mean, we could get all the way up there. Obviously, a lot can change in between now and then. This is a weekly chart. Anything can happen in the world. But as far as potential resistance, I'm not seeing a ton. Yeah, we might test some of these, some of these levels may act as resistance, but I don't know. At this point, I'm more targeting some Fibonacci's from a bigger pull. Just because, here we have our low, lower low. Yeah, between that, where is basically from where we've set our highs now, where's the next high would be way back here. So that's where I'm pulling from. So what kind of a move would that be like from here if we get it? Would be 100% to the upside. So potentially a beautiful move there. Again, guys, I just want to keep being clear about this. I know nothing about fundamentals. I am mostly interested in Bitcoin. My altcoin bags are not anything crazy. I don't care if I lose them. That's a part of the altcoin game. They're risky as fuck, in my opinion. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm liking that chart. Sheldon's been pushing scalp. Nice. Yeah, I mean, if there's people pushing it, if there's a legit community and product there, then yeah, and a low market cap like that and a structure break, yeah, I like it. Like I said, I bought some. Whether it goes to 0 or does 100x, we'll see. I was gonna look at Woo. Yeah, kind of same thing. We're just breaking beautiful structure. We're just kind of staircasing higher. Did we actually get a close above this? We did get a close above this. So this is one of those times where I would consider this to be our new confirmed higher low. Just because we did actually get a close above this structure back here. So this is my signal that, the trend's hopefully going to continue to the upside. Ideally, we see a pullback first in a healthy market, but that's if it's not going to hold that resistance as support. Then I expect, that pullback into some lower fibs and then carry on from there. But yeah, as it stands, the structure is still bullish, in my opinion. Like, that's one of those things where, maybe on shorter time frames, yeah, you lose this type of structure and yeah, you're getting stopped out, invalidated, whatever. But as far as the actual structure goes, that doesn't change anything, in my opinion, if we would drop below this level, because I'm still calling this our higher low, basically. Just the bottom of the range that we're just trying to break out of, right? And obviously on smaller cap coins and stuff, that is a big volatile move. So yeah, maybe you do want to have your stop closer, whatever. Or if you're just holding spot bags, maybe more so looking at a buy the dip opportunity if we do pull back. That's more so what I would be looking at. Because I think this market cycle is very young, personally. So I think it's more buy the dip season, more so than trying to short the rip. Just curious about this this market structure right here. on the 4 hour. So we had this high. We did get our close above, and yes, it did, you know, it was a bit of a fake out, but that's totally normal. What I would like to see would be a pullback just a little bit further. Maybe that's all it's got, but I mean, really, as long as we're holding above this high here, I mean, the structure still looks good to me. It's still intact. All right. Oh, that thing is still on a tear. I know we talked about this last week. Woo. And yeah, same thing. Market structure looks beautiful. Since we obviously broke this high, set our higher high, wherever we end up topping out right now briefly. This is more so the area I'd be looking for support. I'd like to see this green box hold if it is going to pull back, because if that changes, then obviously then we're setting a lower low. But yeah, that's that's on quite a moon mission. You could try and find some sort of a diagonal trend line, I suppose. Maybe something like that may get tagged again. Get some kind of a swing fail on that. That would be interesting to scoop up. But, you know, if we end up testing that, you know, a third time and then closing below it, that's where we just have to assume that, hey, we're probably gonna come back to these levels at least, but we still have that horizontal structure, so then see what happens there, basically. But yeah, as it stands right now, I mean, this thing is just staircasing beautifully. ARB, OP, render I want to look at. Oh yes, we were talking about this one last week as well, that we are testing. Oh boy. Simon, I believe you were asking me about this one. And I was saying that, you know, we are coming towards those all-time highs, so there is a chance that we fight with it for a while. I don't know how worried I would be about it. Like, I mean, the market is, it's getting pretty euphoric, pretty FOMO-y, and I mean, at a certain point in the market cycle, that doesn't necessarily get punished. And I think we're kind of at that point in the market cycle where, although it's important to be aware of these levels, I think the market cycle itself is far from over. So it depends what kind of a time frame you're looking at taking profits on. But, you know, like if you're in from way lower prices, yeah, this is a beautiful place to take some profits off the table, because we're obviously at resistance, right? Do I think it's going to get devastated or hammered to all-time lows or anything like that? No. But, you know, just important to be cautious. If you're sitting on a 10x or something like that, maybe it's worth closing a little at that point. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that one, because yeah, we're at resistance, but it doesn't look bad yet or anything like that. But the thing is, it could pull back significantly and still be healthy, right? I mean, if we came back into this range at all in these levels, I mean, it's going to feel devastating, because that's from here, looking at something like a 40-50% correction to the downside. Absolutely possible. Do I think it's probable? Not really, personally, but it's always good to be aware of anything that could happen, right? 4 hour chart, we do also have this little bit of a failed break. So yeah, that's something to be a little bit cautious of. As well, even just the fact that, you know, as we were staircasing higher, this is kind of the low I'd be looking at, and we did technically close some bodies below that. So maybe this is one of those cases where we're going to see the super fib basically at 115, saves you from the wick on that failed break. But even if you were looking at playing the opposite, I mean, it's almost hit the second take profit there as well. Not saying you're trading it on leverage or anything like that, but just looking at, yeah, that makes sense that we saw a bit of a rejection there. how it goes from here, I mean, we're going to have to see, right? If we all of a sudden start breaking these lows, setting lower lows, then maybe it's not a bad idea to start pulling some Fibonacci's and just looking for some key areas to start maybe taking a little more profits just in case. But that's just the way I would personally be approaching it as it stands right now. I don't know, it's tapping away at all-time highs. It could absolutely moonship at any time. If it, gets some confident candles closing above all-time highs, then it's going to enter price discovery and the market will decide where it goes from there, right? Yeah, if Render does a massive cup and handle. Oh, that would be funny. ENS. Which chart should I use? Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah. Here we go. See another one of those eng patterns, hey? See a couple of them, actually. Same thing as most things in the market, though. You're going to see these big falling wedges that ended up playing out. Basically, big downtrend line, breaking it, flipping that into support, carrying on. I want to see, where does something like this? This is just for my own curiosity here. Not super clean. Yeah, the structure I'd be looking at here, I mean, it could pull back quite a bit and still be healthy in my opinion, because what I'm watching would be kind of this area as the higher low, because we had this high, we have our higher high, lowest point between the two. That's kind of where I'm looking at support. So if it does pull back, I mean, that's, again, going to feel like a lot because that would be on a daily time frame. Just something to be aware of. That's a possibility, right? More realistic, I think we would end up seeing something closer to these levels here. Let's see if I can pull a fib from somewhere like this pivotal point here. That might be a decent buy opportunity. Kind of that whole range. Just because when we did have this pullback here with the structure change, then we ended up, here's where we have a low, lower high. We did break that, and ever since setting that low, we've obviously never set a lower low. So at this point, that's where I'm interested in having my range pulled. So I think it's absolutely possible that we pull back somewhere like that. What kind of a percentage would we be looking at? 15 to 20% correction to the downside wouldn't be all too crazy, in my opinion. Does it have to happen? Absolutely not. But if it got down to those levels, potentially a nice retrace situation. QANX. All right, one more, leggies. What would be the most history? Probably Gate IO, or does Bitmart? I have a feeling there's not much liquidity or volume. Gate, okay. Holy, that looks like a volatile chart. Whoo! This thing has made monstrous gains from where it bottomed out of 50x. So just taking a look at what we learned from market structure, I'm just going to show you. So we set this low. When we get a lower low, that's where we have our lower high, where we bottom out here. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. This is basically where the downtrend broke, Here, let me just clean this up a little bit. There's my signal that the downtrend may be breaking. Pull a fib. Boom, Stuber fibs, beautiful entry. Yeah, what did it get since bottoming out here? Oh, 100%. A lot different than how these lower prices back here look. But either way, doubling your money, can't complain with that if you got into it fairly early. As far as the market structure goes right now, it's kind of holding support so far right where I would like it to. Because again, as we're staircasing higher, we had this high, set a higher high. At that point, this is our higher low. And then we have a higher high. This is our higher low. So that's where I have this green box here. So as long as the price stays above that box, sorry, might getting tongue-tied here. As long as the price stays above this green box, I think it's in a healthy structure, just staircasing higher. If we end up losing that green box, I mean, it might be a straight shot back down to some of this old support, just because there's not really much for structure here. Just something to watch for. Yeah. A lot of shit in the market's looking good, you guys. There's a lot of momentum. I don't want to fight the trend, and I know everybody's always desperate to catch a reversal, and like I said earlier, you're only going to be right on a reversal once. Is it really worth fighting the trend? I mean, if you were trying to catch that reversal over those 3 days of absolute parabola to the upside, when you could have just, I mean, unfortunately, that is what it took for me to realize a lot of people look at market structure a little different than me. So that's why I felt the need to make this video today, explaining that little lesson. So hopefully that kind of helped. But yeah, if you were kind of looking at proper structure there, even on the 5 minute, there was just never a time when it seemed feasible to short, basically until we ended up dropping. Here, I just want to erase my drawings here. At this point, you know, here's a perfect example that after we finally dropped that structure that I showed you guys earlier, that's where I'm starting to look for the pullback for more of a short, right? And that would have already played out, but I would have been looking at a fib, something like that. Boom. Stuber fibs for the win, baby. Has hit the TP1, not quite TP2, but either way, nice reaction right in that fib pocket. So that's more so where I would have been waiting to even consider a short, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. At this point, I think there's so much bullish momentum in the charts that I just, me personally, and you guys know I'm as degen as it gets, I have zero interest in trying a shorter reversal of this. I just don't really, other than maybe the odd scalp that I'm in and out in a couple minutes, or at least able to update my stop loss within a couple minutes. You know, the ideal setup with a nice tight stop. Yeah, sure, I'll try and swing at one, but I am not actually trying to catch like the main reversal. I just don't see a reason to look for that yet. And I just don't want to bet against the trend. I mean, anyone who tried to from Monday to Wednesday kind of felt the pain of that, unfortunately. Yeah, exactly. Fibs, and like everyone has their own ways of using fibs. I've seen the Uber fibs a little bit. I haven't really put them into practice, but it's funny. I do notice that me and Will often are kind of targeting the same sort of entries. I'm not going to show you the Uber fibs because I don't know the exact rules for them. That's more of a Smallio. His strategy. I'm the Stuber, he's the Uber. I stole that name fair and square. Both great strategies, but again, no matter how good a strategy is, I think it's so important to backtest it and just make sure you are seeing things the way that you should be, because it's easy to overlook and just be like, hey, this guy trades this way, I'm going to do the same thing. Meanwhile, he's missing 3 other pieces of the puzzle, right? Yeah, I think I actually wanted to go and watch that Uber video in the academy. Everyone should. What breakdown would it take for me to consider looking for reversal? Um, Honestly, usually I just trade shorter time frames anyways. So, like, I might take a swing at, let's say, a break in structure on the 5 minute even. I would consider shorting, but like I said, I'm just going to be very quick to update my stops, take profits like any normal trade, and not just think, hey, I'm going to short this thing down to 30K or something stupid like that, right? But I just need some sort of a break at least. Um, like the 4 hour, I mean, we have to drop some pretty significant levels even on the 4 hour. I would consider a little heavier, at least consider if we dropped a level like maybe this green box. If we lose that level, I would consider looking for shorting some kind of a bounce, let's say up to here or whatever, looking for some kind of a short. Realistically, I don't think I'm just not really looking for a bearish reversal honestly right now. If it slaps me in the face, I'll take a scalp. But everything I was talking about on the weekly chart at the start of my video, if you tuned in late, I highly recommend going back when I'll post this on my YouTube channel within a couple hours here. But if you missed the start of my video, I strongly encourage watching the beginning because I went over some pretty significant stuff on the weekly, in my opinion. And I'm just unfortunately so bullish on the weekly chart until things change that I just don't really care. I'm just not desperate to short a reversal. I'd rather just swing at some longs, and I'm always playing the range until it breaks anyways, much like the position I'm in right now. Oh, can I reload this? That'd be easier. But just playing it for what it is, right? Every range, I am taking profits along the way and hoping to catch a runner with part of my position, but not actually banking on the fact that we have to just moonship, right? I'm taking every trade, playing it range for range. But yeah, I'm just not desperate to try and catch a reversal. I think that's a dangerous game. I've been through market conditions like this before, and playing the long side far outweighed playing the short side as many times as I wanted to try and catch a reversal, just thinking in my gut feeling that the market's rallied too fast. That's not how trading works, unfortunately. The market does not give a shit about our feelings, and it makes that very clear on a daily basis. So yeah, right now I haven't even thrown a game plan together as far as getting ready for a short. I'm just kind of scalping range for now. Yeah, you guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. Hopefully, you guys found this stream useful. Let me know in the chat. If you did appreciate my insights, it would do me a huge favor to actually go to my YouTube channel and like this video once it's updated shortly, probably in a couple hours. I'll post it in the group. For those of you watching this on my YouTube channel a little later, if you are interested in some of my favorite indicators, plus access to the VIP Discord with live streams such as these put on by not only myself, but also a handful of other very knowledgeable traders, as well as an OKYC exchange to get your DGen on, I have a couple links in the description below for discounts and so on. With that, I am out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.